Sorry, guys. So, good morning. Can you hear me? Benjamin, how are you?
Fine.
Good. Okay. This week I want to talk about relationships from a different angle than what we've been doing. Is it not working? No sound? No. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's the first step.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
I'll talk. Hello. Can you hear? No. You don't hear anything? Guess he'll start again. Oh, me? Refresh. Not that my words are so important to us to be filmed.
Yeah, you can write something.
Jordan, have you met David?
I think so.
Yeah. And Shushan?
Yeah.
Jordan?
Have you met David?
Oh, hey, you're famous. It's amazing. Okay. So when we say the brachot at a wedding, we thank Hashem, we praise Him for giving us ahava, love, which we've talked about a lot. Ahava, ahavta l'reacha kamocha, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. We say ahava ve'achva ve'shalom ve'reut. So shalom we know means, what's shalom?
Hello, peace.
Peace. And re'ut, we said ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So the word re'ah means friend. So there's friendship, peace, love. There's just one word which is stuck in there that we haven't talked about. Achva. What is it?
We see that on Trina.
It's the name of a company that makes food. Okay, achva. What does it mean? Why would they use that? Ahava, achva, shalom, v'rayut. Love, achva, peace, and friendship. So what's achva? Achva, spelled like this: Aleph, Chet, Vav, Hey. Achva, sometimes in Hebrew, to make sure that you know that it's a consonant and not a vowel, we double the Vav. Achva, it's just a way to make sure that you should pronounce the V sound, the consonant. So what is achva? There's a word hiding within it that you all know, hopefully. And that is the word ach.
Brotherhood.
So achva is brotherhood. How is brotherhood different than love? How is it different than peace? And how is it different than friendship? These are all forms of relationships, of loving relationships. Clearly, peace is a peaceful relationship, but friendship, love, and brotherhood, sense of kinship, maybe be better, because it's not only brother, achot, come from the word achva, but kin means relative. You're a relative. You're next of kin, right? So it's another name for a blood relationship. Achva. So how is a relationship with your brother or your sister different than other types of relationships of love?
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. Good. Yeah. Once you're brothers forever. What else? Do you have a brother, Yisrael? You do have a younger brother. He's in Hong Kong? How often do you speak to him? How often do you speak to him? Once a year? Once a day? Once a week? Not at all. You don't speak to him at all. Wow. Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Wow. Okay, how about you, Gabe? You have a brother? Pretty close. from what I hear. He's here in the yeshiva. Isn't that unique? I have a brother here in yeshiva, a blood brother. Yeah. How about you, Jordan? You have any brothers, sisters?
One older sister.
One older sister. And you're in touch with her?
Yeah.
Nice. Once a week, once a month?
Once a week.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice. Great. Get along. I happen to know David's brother. Do you have any other siblings or just the two brothers? 8. 8 siblings. Wow. 10 in total? Oh, 10 in total. I was waiting for 12. 12 siblings. The Shvatim have 12 siblings, but 10. All right. Close. But this time it's all from one woman? It's all from your mother. Wow. 10 siblings. That's going to make a lot of relationships there. So how else is it different, the relationship with a sibling different? Shushan said one thing, he said that it's forever. A marriage is forever, hopefully, but you can stop. You could stop, right? We're not Catholics. Right? Catholics there's no divorce. But Judaism, there is divorce. You could divorce. So the relationship will stop. It won't be your husband or your wife ever anymore. So that's unique. It's unique about a brother or sister. Good. What else?
You have no choice about it. It's just born into a family.
No choice. I think that's the key.
I think I mentioned it.
Not today so much, but there's no choice. Your parents had 2 children. Sometimes there's a half brother, there's a half sister. Binyamin, do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 2 brothers,
Yeah.
but we haven't seen each other
For how long?
forever.
Forever?
I left my home.
Yeah.
I was 7.
7. And that's it? No contact? No connection?
We had paper contact.
Okay.
Cassette.
I see. Not more than that, huh? Okay. Wow. All stuff, this brother things. Stephen, brothers, sisters?
3 sisters.
It's allowed to have so many children in Malaysia? It's not like China? There's a limit? It's allowed. It's allowed. That's nice. Right, in some countries they have a limit. You're not allowed to have more than one child.
It's only China, no?
China, you're allowed 2 now. Still hasn't stopped. There's still a permission. Only 1. Now they changed it to 2. Yeah.
Lots of population there, but
There's a limit now.
or only 2. But it's the government, it's a politics.
Nobody really pays attention. Wow, yeah. So there's some governments are very strict.
No, Chinese they stop because the kids can't pay the rent for the elders.
I see. Yeah, no, that's a problem. Yeah, it's not a replacement rate either. It's not even. Forget about adding. It's not. Okay, so brothers is a very unique relationship. Achva. Sometimes you can have somebody who's a friend, and you say he's like a brother. He's like a brother to me. Yeah, very close. Usually brothership, not always, as we know, but usually it's expected to be a close relationship. Even though it's not by choice, but the fact that you're biologically related, the fact that you usually grow up in the same family, you grow up in the same conditions, you know each other, usually the children are close in age to each other, and it does engender a sense of closeness. It should engender some kind of commitment, right? It's usually said in the Yiddish inflection, a concept called mishpuche, mishpacha. If you're related to someone, then you're stuck with them, but you, for better or for worse, you care for them. And he's one of your own, right, kin. Maybe it comes from kind. He's one of your kind. He's one of your kind. So you should take care of your compatriots of your country. Even more so, you should take care of your fellow family members, somebody in your family. Can you give an example of two brothers and sisters where the Torah says you should be very, very close? Particularly, I'm thinking of someone where one of them got sick and the other one was asked to care for the one who got sick. I don't want to make it too easy. I'll make it a little easier. There was a sister who was very sick, and the brother was asked to pray for her. It's in the Tanakh. A very holy man. The brother was a very holy man. They were all holy, but this brother was a very holy man, and he was asked to pray for his sister who got sick. That's it. Yeah. Miriam got some form of leprosy, and he prays for her. My favorite prayer. You know why? It's my favorite prayer because it's the shortest prayer I know of. It's really short. 5 words. Sometimes I use it when I'm not in the mood, or even when I'm in the mood. Someone asks me to pray for them. I don't want to forget. On the spot, I pray for them. What do I say? 5 words, each word, only 2 letters. I think we actually used it in one of the exercises here in this class on relationships. I asked you to write your own prayer, and we used the pattern of Moshe's prayer for Miriam when he says Kel na refa na la. 5 words, each one only 2 letters. Entire prayer, entire sentence. God, please heal her, please. In any case, the Torah goes on to say, you can't just leave her be sick and not do anything about it. Why? Because, and I quoted this pasuk, at the funeral of my sister, Aleha Shalom, who soon is going to be her year. Next week is going to be the year for her from her passing. I quoted this pasuk as her brother, giving a eulogy for his sister. He says, the verse in the Torah says, when a sister passes, who came out of the same womb that you came out of, if she is hurt, if she is suffering, and it's as if half of your own flesh is suffering. Right? The fact that you're a blood relative, it's like half of you. Intrinsic connection. It's a biological connection. As a matter of fact, when you think about it, it might even be a stronger connection than with your wife. There's no blood connection to your wife or your husband. You choose it. It's true. It's very strong. There's a very unique bond, a very unique attraction between a man and a woman. It's like a battery. You've got a positive and negative. There's a special energy which flows between the plus and the minus of a battery, right? There's a special electricity in the bond between a man and a woman. But between siblings, there is a very special bond. That's blood brothers, right? Where they have some clubs, they draw blood. And they mix the blood together. You were in a club like that when you were a kid? Sometimes you want to make everybody swear that they're going to be loyal to the club. So you draw a prick of blood, right? And you mix the blood together. We're blood brothers, right? It's people who are naturally blood brothers. They come from the same blood. They have the same, their mother and their father have the same, or either only the mother or only the father. But they have a genetic connection. It's a very strong, very powerful thing. Would you want to say something, Benjamin? You know this custom of drawing blood?
I have my oldest son. with he has a friend. They made this when they are young one. They are
Yeah.
7, 8.
Okay.
They play tennis together,
Yeah.
and
They actually drew blood to be friends.
Really,
Wow.
really brothers.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
One has a lot of money, but he make money, and everything that he do, he call my son, or my son call him.
Beautiful. Nice. Wow.
They have the same name,
Right.
Daniel.
Really? The same name? Ah, that's easy.
It's amazing.
Okay.
But there is a saying in
Yeah.
Chinese.
Yeah.
It say blood is thicker than water.
Which means?
The blood of relationship is a bit thicker than water.
So it means it's stronger,
Yes,
it connects,
Stronger
stronger bond. Yeah. Yeah, so family relationships, because you're biologically related, is strong. I think that we try to use that concept. I'm coming to you fresh off of yesterday's experience. We had a Brit Milah on Shabbat for my grandson. What is a Brit Milah? We draw blood. And we enter the child into the covenant of the children of Abraham. It's a commitment to this tribe, to our people, to our covenant with God. So it's very powerful when we speak about being blood brothers, right? When you're naturally you have the same blood. It's a bond. It's a bond which is so important. Achva. It's a different type of relationship. And the truth is, when we speak about a couple that gets married, we wish all of the different types of relationships. You should have ahava of this kind, and achva, and shalom, and reut. You should also be friends, and you should also be so connected, like brothers, like siblings, and you should have peace between you, and love. Many different aspects of every relationship. It's not one or the other. Hopefully, your brothers, not only are they your blood brothers because you have no choice and you're connected to them and they're forever. Hopefully, there's also love there, and at least peace. And you should have peace between them. Maybe even re'ut, friendship. Sometimes you go through experiences with your siblings which you don't go through with your friends. Right? You go through with your friends, maybe you'll go to the army together. With your friends, maybe you'll be in sports together, or you'll hang out with. But with your brothers, you both went to grandma's house, or you both had to deal with the same aunt who was annoying. Or you sometimes you played together as children when the parents were away, and there's a unique bond between siblings. Okay, now, why do I mention this now? Obviously, it's class on relationships, and this is part of every relationship that we should have. This sense of commitment to each other, the sense of that we're with you through thick and thin, and you can create such a bond even if you're not biological brothers and sisters. But part of the reason why I'm mentioning it now is because we're preparing for Pesach. Can anybody tell me a connection between what we've been discussing up till now, the concept of achva, brotherhood or kinship? What does that have to do with the story of Pesach? You know, so it's fascinating that in the Haggadah we don't mention Moshe or Aaron and Miriam. It's funny, these brothers are not in the Haggadah. We spoke about God taking us out of Egypt, not Moshe and Aaron and Miriam. I don't think they're mentioned. So what could be the connection between brothership? Where do we find any brothership in the Haggadah Shel Pesach?
We have the 4 sons.
Good. The 4 sons. We assume that they're brothers. They're 4 sons. Could be 4 types of sons in different families. But Yefeh is four sons, which most people assume are brothers, right? There's one son who's, what are the four sons? Wise,
evil.
Chacham, Rasha, Chadam is simple, whatever that means, and the one who doesn't know how to ask, four sons. But I want to share with you an idea which I've been carrying for many years, and my children already laugh at me. They know this is my theme. That I say it so often, especially when it comes to the story of Pesach. And that comes from a very interesting custom. You have it on the board behind me, those who are not in my morning class. You're looking at it for the first time, Shushan, David, but the others have seen it before, and that is that there's an order, a special Seder. It's called order. There's an order of what we do on Seder night, on the Seder night, on the first night of Pesach. We go through this list. We do Kadesh, see it on top of me, Urchatz, and then we do something called Karpas. Karpas consists of taking some green vegetables, dipping them in salt water and eating them. We make a bracha, bar priyadama, and then we eat them. Why do we take the karpas? What is karpas? The beginning of the Seder. Who remembers? We talked about it in the first class. Why do we eat karpas? Why do we dip a vegetable in salt water at the beginning before we continue with the Seder, the rest of the Seder?
Remember bitterness in Egypt.
It's a little bit true, but a little bit not true. Because really, to remember the bitterness in Egypt, we're going to have the bitter herb later, the maror. This is not the bitter herb. This is a different vegetable which doesn't have to be bitter. Could be actually sweet. I mean, we do dip it in salt water, and salt water reminds us of the tears. So there is a little bit there of that reminding us of the slavery. But the vegetable, don't get confused with the bitter herb. This is not the bitter herb. Okay? So why do we have karpas? The simple answer that the Talmud says is to make the children ask questions. There's no real content. Well, we dip twice, and then one of the four questions asked by the sons is, why do we dip twice? Why do we have this, we start the meal, and then we stop it fine, we're having hors d'oeuvres. We're hungry. Have a little hors d'oeuvres before the main meal. But then we stop and we tell the story. So it piques the interest of the children. That's the simple reason mentioned in the Talmud. However, of course, we've been delving into the deep mysteries of the Jewish tradition for thousands of years. And so other reasons have come up for why we have this custom of karpas. So one reason that I want to share with you is connected to achava. How can karpas, a green vegetable, be connected to the brothers? So if you look at the word karpas, which is actually, it doesn't actually appear in the Talmud, it appears a little bit later. It's more on the level of drash, right? What we're saying right now, but it's a very important idea that I'd like to share. And that is the word karpas consists of two words. Maybe it comes from. The truth is, even if you take it at its face value, the word karpas might have its root in I think there's a word in an ancient language called Sanskrit. Karpasa means a fine cotton. It's a fabric. Not only that, it might be made out of two words, kar and pas. Pas means a line or a stripe. And there were a few people in our history of the Jewish people who were marked by wearing a stripe or a colored stripes.
Okay, so
Yosef.
Who else?
Yosef ktonet pasim. He wore a cloak of stripes. Actually, it doesn't have to mean stripes. Pas can mean fine, a fine textile, very fine cotton or silk or some material which was a very expensive and honored clothing. We find that also the kings of Judea, the girls would wear ktonet pasim. The princesses would wear this fine cloak. So, in particular, there was one woman of the royal family who wore this special garment, ketonet pasim. And if you don't know your Tanakh, I don't want to shock you, but you're all adults. There was a rape in the royal palace. Exactly. Avshalom, one of the sons of David, rapes his half-sister, and she tears off her royal garb as a sign of mourning. So apparently this is a royal, and when there's a royal garb, a royal wardrobe, when it gets torn, it's a symbol of the breaking down of the brotherhood. What happens with Yosef and his cloak?
They take him off him, he dip it in blood, and
The brothers are selling him down the river, right? And luckily they didn't kill him, but they sell him down the river, and they take off his special cloak, this ketonet pasim, and they tear it into pieces, and they dip it in blood. And they send it to who?
Father?
To their father, whose name was?
Yep.
Yaakov. And they say, look at what we found. Maybe Yaakov thinks he was torn to pieces by a wild animal, and this is the blood of his, and maybe Yosef is lost. Maybe he was killed by a wild animal. So it could be that the karpas that we eat is perhaps reminding us of this ketonet pasim, which got ripped into shreds. Perhaps it reminds us of the brotherhood, which got ripped into shreds. And you know what makes the argument even stronger? What did we say? We take the vegetable, which is called karpas, some kind of leafy green vegetable, and we dip it in what? In salt water. So the truth is, the Rambam has a different custom. If you look in the Rambam's Haggadah, he says, don't dip it in salt water. He says, we dip the karpas in what? In the charoset. Charoset is another sort of paste which we make for Pesach, which has nuts in it and apples in it, and wine, red wine. And it may be that this dipping the karpas in the charoset is supposed to remind us of the brothers who dipped the ketonet pasim in blood. The red wine is a reminder of the red blood that they dipped the cloak into, the cloak of Yosef into, a symbol of tearing the fabric of brotherhood. And it's a sign of the breaking of the brotherhood, just like Avshalom and Tamar, and just like... by the way, there's one more mention of pasim or pas in the Tanakh. Only one more mention. We just read it last week. What did King Ahasuerus adorn his palace with in Persia? Hur, karpas, utchelet. Karpas, it meant this fine, beautiful textile. This sort of silky, beautiful beautiful drapery that he had all over his palace. Karpas, he uses the same word. What does it go on to say? Haman describes the Jewish people at the time. What are the Jewish people like? Yeshno am echad, mefuzar, umeforad ben amim. There is a people which is split up and scattered among all the nations. They're not united. They're not together, he says. And so they're vulnerable.
No, they are united. He said the first one is echad.
There is one nation, but they're scattered. Mefuzar or meforad bein amim. They're scattered and they're separate. They're not united.
Well, if he would say they're not united, they would say yesh am mefuzar meforat.
It's interesting. So he mentions that maybe the saying echad is saying that you would expect them not to be scattered. You'd expect them to be together. But the main point of what he was saying is that they're scattered, that they're not integrated. And perhaps Karpas is there's another reason why the Karpas is a reminder for us of the disunity among the brotherhood that we're supposed to have in the Jewish people. We're all brothers. Why are we all brothers? We're all part of the 12 tribes, which come from one father, Avram and Yitzchak, right? And Yaakov, the three forefathers, where Yaakov had 12 children, which all of them made up the 12 tribes, and we're all descendants of one of those 12 tribes. So the disunity between the tribes, we just read in Sefer Bereshit, the last 4 or even 5 parshot of the book of Bereshit all spoke about this big fight, the rift between Yosef and his brothers. Ultimately, they came back together and nobody was sent away, and the brothers made peace between them. But peace between the Jews is a big deal. The brotherhood between the Jews, we should feel like we're kin, like we're of the same kind, that we're blood brothers. Every young baby becomes a blood brother when he has the circumcision. So why is this in the Haggadah Shel Pesach? Why do we put it here in Karpas, dipping it in the Charoset perhaps? In the middle of the Seder. What does it have to do with the Seder? Anybody? What's the connection between the story of Pesach and the brothership between Yosef and his brothers, and Tamar and Amnon, and the disunity in the Pesach story? It's a Purim story. It's not Purim now. It's Pesach. What does it also have to do with Pesach? Any ideas? So this is what I would like to present. I'd like to suggest, and it's based on one of the commentaries on the Rambam. It's a not so well-known commentary. He mentions this as well, that perhaps the idea is as follows. We're about now to tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. We're going to leave Egypt. Hooray! We were saved from slavery. We're going to talk about how terrible it was. We were slaves and how we got out of Egypt and God redeemed us. Wait a minute. Before we talk about that whole story, maybe we should stop for a moment and ponder how we got to Egypt in the first place. What's the pre-story, before the story? The story starts, we're slaves in Egypt. Who are we? How did we become slaves in Egypt? Why are we in Egypt? We come from Canaan. The 12 tribes. God promised us to be in the land of Israel. Why aren't we in the land of Israel? It's because the brothers sold Yosef to Egypt. And then there was a famine, and then the brothers came back together, and it's a whole long story. Remember the prehistory. He said it's not history, it's my story. But the beginning of my story is not with the Jewish people coming out of Egypt. Really, we do start. The Pesach story, the Haggadah, is all about the Jewish people being born, coming out of Egypt. Everything in the book of Bereshit is before that. It's before the story of the Haggadah. There's a small mention, a hint to that story, that it all started because we weren't able to keep it together as brothers. The brothers almost killed Yosef. And the Karpas is a very subtle way of mentioning that we have to have unity, we have to have a sense of mishpucha, we have to have a sense of brotherhood, achva, in the Jewish people. And it's not enough just to say, oh, I'm a co-religionist. Oh, we pray to the same God. It has to be much deeper than that. It has to be stronger than that. It has to be forever. It has to be something that it runs very, very deep. And you stick with your brothers, even if you don't like them. You don't get to choose. Your brothers are your brothers and sisters. And that's really, if we don't, maybe we'll get thrown down into Egypt to slavery one more time. The Jewish people were formed in this unique way, and that's the beginning of the Pesach story. We're not going to focus on it too much this night. There's other hints to Yosef and his brothers throughout the Haggadah Shel Pesach. But the main one, I think, is there's other hints to it in the Pesach sacrifice, which we don't have nowadays. But the Pesach sacrifice also says that you should dip the blood. You dip when the Jews were in Egypt, they had to put blood on their doorposts, right? On the night of the Exodus from Egypt, they had to put blood on their doorposts. It says you take from the Korban Pesach, you take some kind of a agudat ezov, a bundle of hyssop branches, and you dip them into the blood. The Torah uses a special word for where the blood is. It says, badam asher basaf. Saf is another word for a type of vessel where the blood is kept. It's like some kind of a trough. What's the blood? Well, you slaughtered the Korban Pesach, and the blood ran into some kind of a receptacle. The Torah, for some strange reasons, uses a word which is saf, which reminds us of Yosef. And pas. Ktonet pasim is also the pei samich from the name of Yosef. So Yosef is where it all started, this problem that we had, keeping Yosef, our brother who's so different, so unique than all the other brothers. They wanted to get rid of him. Let's all get together and we'll continue the Jewish people. We have to keep the brothers within the fold, as we say. So there's other mentions, there's other hints to the story of Yosef in the Pesach offering. We mentioned this in the Haggadah Shel Pesach as well. But the primary one, I think, is from the Karpas. The Karpas, which connects us to the Ketonet Pasim, connects us to the Purim story, which we just finished talking about. And ultimately, we got to make sure, what do we do on Pesach? How do we usually celebrate Pesach? With the whole family. The family gathers. Maybe you haven't seen your brother for a whole year. Sometimes brothers go off, they get married, they live somewhere else. You go gather, it's a family-oriented holiday. There's even a movie. What's it called? A Different Night, maybe. It's a funny movie. It's a comedy made based on secular American Jewish family making a Pesach Seder. And everybody comes, all the brothers gather, and they're all different, and they're all at each other's throats. And they have a lot of history between them, and a lot of differences between them, and how they get along or don't get along. Many families are dysfunctional. But at the Pesach Seder, of course, you gather together. You got to all be there. And many times the grandmother and there's the aunt or uncle who's going to be annoying, and they all say the same thing every year, and oh, look at you, and how are you? It's a very family-oriented holiday in the secular world. In the Christian world, there's like the once-a-year meeting for Christmas, right? You have or in America, you have the Thanksgiving dinner, wherever it is. There's the concept of the family meal once a year. So in Judaism, it's the Pesach Seder.
Shabbat every week.
And, right, exactly, right. If you're closer, but sometimes you live far away, you don't meet every week, but you make a point of coming together for the Seder. And so there's a lot of tensions sometimes between the family members when they get together, or even if you just go and you spend Pesach with your in-laws. Sometimes we call them the outlaws because we don't have the best relationships with them. There's a lot of mending of relationships, which is on the order of the day. Before I spoke to the other class about all the mitzvot that there are in one night. Matzah, and who remembers all the mitzvot we have? Mitzvah to eat matzah, maror. Sorry, what?
4 cups of wine.
4 cups of wine. What are the mitzvot?
The
Telling the story of the Exodus from Egypt. What else?
Eating the
Korban Pesach if you have shawarma, that's great.
Eating the bitter leaves.
Eating the bitter leaves, the maror, exactly. There's so many mitzvot. Sorry? Leaning on your side. Excellent. So many mitzvot. You know which mitzvah sometimes really is the hardest one of the Pesach night? 4 cups of wine, not so hard. We get a little buzz, right? But eating the matzah, all right, it's not so tasty, not so bad. Tell the story, well, it's interesting, not so bad. The hardest mitzvah sometimes is the one which is on the board. Achva. To have the family reunion and to get along with your brothers and sisters and other family members. This is sometimes a challenge, and you don't want to end up the Seder night. Sometimes could even get to the extreme of ending up the Seder night in fisticuffs, in quarrels, quarrels and anger. Got to be careful. So, I wish you all a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. We do have one more class, B'ezrat Hashem, next week. It's only one more class before Pesach. And so I'm ready. We're in the mode of getting ready for Pesach. And relationships on Pesach is a big deal, not only because of the 4 sons in the Haggadah, but also because perhaps this is so dangerous when you talk about keeping the Jewish people being formed from the story of Yosef and their brothers, and it's put into practice on the night of the Seder many times when you have relationships with parents and in-laws and uncles and aunts and grandparents and brothers and sisters. Hashem should give us strength and wisdom to enhance and develop the relationship with our siblings, a relationship of brotherhood. It's the best translation I can get for achva, because the word ach is in there, brother is in there. But it includes, of course, sisters and everything else. Stop here. Have a great, great week.